Hi, it's Missy. I'm back with another video on making a new spine and sewing in signatures for the Nurse Nancy Little Golden Book. So in the last video, we put the holes, we made the spine and then we put the holes in the spine using the Crop-A-Dile. And now today I'm going to show you how I sew in signatures. This is just the way I do it. There's lots of different ways that you can do it. So I have my signatures here, and here's my little template that I made for the putting the holes in the spine, and I used the same template to put the holes in my signatures. So I just line it up with my signatures. In the center, you want to make sure all of your papers come together. Let's see if you can see that. Make sure they all come together in the center, and then I paper clip them together and lay my template where I can see the very center fold there, and then I just take a pencil and I make my marks on there, and then take the Crop-A-Dile. You could also use an awl. You don't have to have a Crop-A-Dile, and if you don't, it's no big deal. You can just use an awl, which is a really sharp object, and poke down through there and make your holes. The Crop-A-Dile just makes everything so much easier. Try to get this in frame here so you can see it. So I've drawn on my little circles, and I want to set my Crop-A-Dile to the 3/16 inch hole. That's the same size that I put in the spine. And you just line it up. And it goes through all those pages very simply. So get these two punched. Turn it around. And get my last one. All right. So there we have the holes in the signature. Now I've already done the other signatures ahead of time, so you don't have to just sit and watch me make holes. I think you get it, just showing you once. Okay, so now I have my signatures. I have 4, and I've numbered them on the other side just so I can keep them straight for myself. Okay, so next, I'm gonna get yourself a pretty good sized needle. I normally would use one with an even bigger needle with a bigger hole, but I'm gonna be putting buttons on the spine of this book, so I have to use a needle that will go through the buttonholes. So I had to use a little bit smaller one. Okay, so now what I do is you can use different materials to sew in your signatures. I use a waxed linen thread. It's really thick and durable. I really haven't tried anything else. I just really like this, so don't fix it if it's not broken, kind of thing. So what I do is I measure about 3.5 times my the width of my, or the length of my signatures here. That gives me plenty of room if I want to leave a dangle in the middle. Gives me plenty of string left over. Now hopefully I can thread this needle quickly. And there we go. Okay. Just give yourself enough room there to hold on to that. Okay. So the next thing to do is take your first signature, which This is my signature number 1. And your book. Okay. I'll probably start off with them paper clipped, and then I'll probably take them paper clips off. So what you want to do is go through the center hole of your first signature, okay, and then through the center hole of the first, so these would be 1, 2, 3, 4 signatures. So this is my first signature, front of my book. So I'm going to go through the first signature center hole of my spine. Okay. Then pull that thread there. Something else that I normally try to do is just kind of put this thread up out of the way. Okay. So in order to add the buttons to your signature here, and I've kind of got them laid out here how I think that I want them. So just grab your button. And slide it on there. And I usually only put 2 buttons. Just because they take up a lot of space and I don't want them overlapping or anything, but you can add as many buttons as you like. Go through both holes here. You want to go through 2. So if you have a 4-hole button, go through 2 of the holes. And this wax thread, sometimes it's really hard to string these buttons on. All right, and we can adjust those a little more later. And then I'm going to go through the top hole of the spine and the top hole of the signature. Okay. And that pulls them buttons tight. You just got to fiddle with it a little bit. There we go. Okay. So then next, we're going to go all the way down to the last hole in the signature and through the last hole in the spine. This is called a pamphlet stitch. It's just a quick and easy way to sew in your signatures. And then you're going to put those buttons on again. And since I'm using a pretty good sized button there, I'm going to use a smaller button, a small button. If you use all big buttons, all one size big buttons, you're not going to have enough room to get these on. Okay. So now we're going to go down through the center of the spine and through the center of your signature, which it did. Oops, dropped my needle. These great big holes that the Crop-A-Dile makes, it makes it so easy to do this. Okay, so you want to have one string on either side of this center string. Okay, you can take your needle off. And then you're gonna wanna, I kind of tug it in all directions. Make sure it's tight. Make sure that's tight. Okay. And then just tie a knot. Pull it really tight. Okay, and there you go. First signature sewn in. Okay, and I'm probably just gonna paper clip this so that it stays over out of my way while I work on the next signature. Okay, grab signature number 2, make sure it's number 2, yes. And we're just gonna go through the same thing over again. So, again, that's roughly 3.5 times. You don't have to be perfect with this. I tried it with 3 and I just wished that I had a little more string to work with, so I started going 3.5 times. There you go. Let's see if we can get this needle threaded again. It still has a fairly large hole, but if you weren't sewing in buttons, you could use a lot larger hole in your needle. Okay, here we go. All right, so we start again. We're going to go through the center hole of our second signature. So that's the middle hole, second signature in the spine. So we're going to go through there. Okay. Flip it over and add our buttons. I had my buttons laid out in a pattern over here, and I think I started on the complete opposite end, so it's kind of thrown me off a little bit, but that's okay. You can just adjust. It's the thing about these junk journals, nothing has to be perfect. Actually, imperfection looks best. Okay. And we can fuss with these once we get everything sewn in. Okay, so then we're going to go through the top hole of our second hole in the spine, and then through the top hole in our second signature, which, sorry, you can't see that underneath there. There we go. Okay, and then this just kind of pulls it all together. Tighten it up a little. Okay. All right. Now we don't want to lose this string. You don't want it to go back through there, because then that's a real pain. So I just usually tuck it over underneath that paper clip there a couple times to hold it for me. Okay. All right. So then we're going to go to the bottom hole in our signature, and then the bottom hole, if you can see it, in the spine. Flip your book over again. Okay. buttons. Sorry, this is kind of repetitive. Not kind of, it is repetitive. Let's see, I think I will go with, let's go with this button. These are little vintage buttons that I picked up. I think I bought a big jar of them at a rummage sale last year. There we go. Like I said, you just have to kind of fuss with them, especially with this thick waxed string here. And then we're gonna go in through the center of the spine and through the center of the book. Again, make sure you straddle that center string there, one on each side. Take your needle off. Okay, give it a tug in all directions to make sure you're tight. Okay. And I just tie a double knot with this waxed thread. I don't worry about having to make a third knot. Two holds really well. Okay. 2 down, 2 to go. Now you're kind of getting a sneak peek at this Nurse Nancy book. I have done some decorating on some of the pages, but I'm far from finished with it. I was waiting on a couple of things to come in, so I went ahead and decorated some pages, which I normally don't do too much decorating of the pages until I get the signatures sewed in, just because it makes it more bulky and a little harder to work with. Okay. All right. By the time we get these last 2 signatures sewed in, everybody's going to be an expert at sewing in signatures. And you can make yourself a little note. When I first started doing this, I just made myself a little note of how to sew in signatures, and then I would refer back to that. Okay. So, 3rd signature through the center of the 3rd row of holes in your spine. Okay. I'll go ahead and tuck that little tail up under there. Okay. And just flip it over. Add buttons. And those buttons are a little wonky right now, but like I said, they do move up and down. They're a little hard to move, but they can be adjusted. So we'll just adjust them after we get it all sewn in here. And I'm going to try to use a couple small buttons because of that big button there. It takes up so much room. Just alternate your size of buttons. All right. top hole in the spine and through the top hole of the signature. Pulls that tight. Flip your book over. Go down to the bottom. Flip it back over and add more buttons. Let's see. I'll do a small one first and then another big one. I still have to put some trim on the front of this book. Trim out along the sides here. I just haven't decided yet on the trim. That, I think, is the hardest part for me, is deciding on the fabric for the book and my trims. Now see, I've came out on the same side, so I'm just going to stick my needle under. We want to be on either side of that string. Okay, give it a nice tug, make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want to pull it so tight that you rip your pages, but you want it pretty snug. You don't want your signatures to be floppy once you get them sewn in and tied in. Now you can cut these off short if you like. I tend to like to leave them long. I'll cut them off some and put some dangles or something on those. Okay. All right, last signature here. And about half. I have also seen people buy some thick thread and then wax it themselves. You can actually heat up some beeswax and run your thread through it and make your own waxed thread. Okay, so last one. Okay, again, through the middle of your signature. Let's tie that string up. Okay. Through the middle of middle hole in your spine. My paper clips are getting me stuck. Okay. Flip it over. Now we're going to add buttons again. Okay. Another one of these big buttons. through the top hole. All right. Through the bottom hole. And when you use the Crop-A-Dile, it makes poking through these holes so much easier. You don't really have to search for them, they're just there. If you use an awl, sometimes it's a little tricky finding those holes because they're so small. I'm in no way, shape, or form sponsored by Crop-A-Dile. I wish I were, but I'm not. I just like the product. We're almost there, almost done. This part of making the junk journals used to make me nervous because I had already done so much work and I was afraid that I would mess up the spine and then all that work would be down the drain. But after you've done a couple, it really becomes almost a second nature to you. Okay. Tighten this one down. Okay. All right. Just go through and take all these paper clips off. All right, and you have your sewn in signatures. And I've got plenty of room for decorating and filling this up. And here's what your spine looks like. And then you can go through and fiddle with all the little buttons here and move them up and down and work them in the way you like them. Okay, and that's as easy as it gets. Not too hard. If you have any questions though, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And stay tuned for the final flip through of Nurse Nancy. Hopefully I can finish this up in the next few days. I have a lot going on. My dad's having surgery tomorrow, and then I have to work. So hopefully I can find time to get this finished up. But thank you for watching.